All right, ladies and gentlemen, in 2025, there is some new rules in the 410 sprint car racing scene at the national level, and today we are going to dive right into them. So I know I'm a little bit behind on making this video, but I still wanted to take the time to kind of share some of my thoughts. Originally, I wasn't sure what to think seeing some of the new rules, and I spent a lot of time reading what some of the fans had to say, what some of the other drivers' feedback was. Kind of weighed a lot of different options. You know how it is in today's day and age. Everybody has an opinion and everybody, pushes their opinion out there. So now I want to share kind of what I think, and then also if you haven't seen some of these new rule changes, maybe you can learn here with me. So as we roll into this off-season, High Limit posted 5 new rule changes that they are adding for this upcoming season, and today I really just want to focus on 3 of them. These 3 I think are the most important and will have the most impact on our sport as a whole. So what I want to talk about first that involves one of the new rules in the high limit world of 410 sprint car racing is what they've changed with the bleeders. So what I'm holding right here, this is an electronic bleeder that we run on our 410 sprint car. This goes in the rear axle. Those right there, they plug into the bleeder housings in the wheel. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Some of you guys are probably asking, Tanner, why do you need a bleeder? Well, see, on the rear tires of a sprint car, obviously we're going extremely fast. We're running on very slick surfaces and we have a lot of wheel spin. So as our cars go around the track and as the race rolls on, it's very possible for our tires to gain pressure because they're spinning so much and they're building that pressure as we're racing along. And so that's where the bleeders come into play. They are set at a certain air pressure and they bleed the tire down to that to keep our pressure consistent throughout the race. That way our car handles well and similar throughout the entire race. I can tell you this, if you're running 8.5 pounds in your right rear and then all of a sudden you put a tire on that had 3.5 pounds of air in the right rear, your car is going to act a lot different. And over time, bleeder technology has changed. They obviously have not always been digital like this, where, this thing's so easy to use. I feel like my dog could probably set my bleeders and do a good job. They're just made incredibly well. There's some more old school ones that just plugged right into the wheel. They weren't in the axle at all, and they're like super, super small and lightweight. So we used to run those when I first got involved. And you had this little tank that you had to set them with, but just the times have changed, and now I would say just about every team on the road runs, digital bleeders. But now with the bleeder systems that we have, they've also added an air inflation system that attaches onto it. And I probably should have done some more research, I guess, before I made this video, but I guess it attaches to the bleeder, goes in the axle. I have not seen one of them with my own eyes up close. I actually haven't even really seen a picture of them. I've just heard the chatter in the pit area, and now what we're seeing online is we're realizing more teams, I guess, have been running them recently, or we're trying to hide it. I don't know. But anyway, this in-axle tire inflation system, basically it attaches to the bleeder and it's supposed to pump air into the tire to keep your pressure more consistent throughout the race, especially if you're having like a flat. So the bleeder itself helps the rear tires from gaining too much pressure, while the in-axle tire inflation system will help them if they're, getting too low. So for example, maybe if they're at 6 pounds, 7 pounds, then it will air it back up to whatever you have set. And I believe it can put up to 9.5 pounds of air in the tire, and it's just kind of always rolling. So it's literally like a little air compressor in there. It's pretty nuts, I won't lie. So High Limit has decided that's what they want to do next year. So I don't want to make assumptions, but I'm going to say most of the full-time teams I would think would be running that system, and maybe this is where sprint car racing is shifting, where everyone's going to have one in their cars, where it's allowed, of course. Now, if you're asking me how do I feel about it, I'm very, very mixed on this one because, one, it's another, solid expense for a race team. I believe they said the system's going to retail for over $1,000 or $1,500. So if you have, at least probably 2 sets, there's $3,000. And yeah, just one of those things, like, I'm not sure, is it needed? I did see an interesting perspective where I saw a driver who really talked about how, and this is true, this does happen from time to time, under long reds, long yellows, our tires cool off so much we can't build up enough pressure to get back to where we need. And it's very common that sometimes when you see guys wreck on their own or get into a cushion or bike up, a lot of times it's because they have low pressure in the right rear. The car gets in the corner, it just gets stuck and it will not turn. Like the weight transfer, it just gets over on that corner, it just starts digging in, it starts bouncing, and you see guys yard cars. So obviously a system like that is cheaper than junking a race car, but it's hard to play that game, and you know, so anyway, what I'm trying to say is I'm just not sure how I feel about it yet. And with that, I see how it could be a good advantage for someone because, you know, let's say, like I said, a guy has a low tire, he doesn't have that inflation system, you know, it's sitting at 5.5 pounds as they're about to go green, and the guy in second, you know, his is aired up to 8.5 or 9, and he's ready to roll. You know, he's going to be able to attack that first corner, you know, a little bit better maybe, or carry more speed, or just get going within the first couple laps and not have to build it all back up. But anyway, high limit, they put it in the rule book, so like I said, we have to play by the rules. So it'll be interesting, you know, maybe less teams will have it, maybe more teams. I would think more guys would. It's kind of like that fancy new gadget that's out on the market. Once it's out there, you know how dirt racing works, man. Everybody's got to have the latest and greatest stuff, and we're no different. We try to do the same for our team to give ourselves the best chance to win. So now it is time to talk about Wickers, because the next rule is a new Wicker rule for 2025. So for the fans that don't know what is a Wicker, well, that's what I'm holding in my hand right here. And this little piece, it actually slides in the back of the center section of a top wing and a nose wing. And usually when we're talking about Wicker rules, they're talking about the top wing. In years past, you could run up to a 2-inch Wicker, and then in 2024 they changed it where you could only run up to a 1-inch. Basically, the bigger the Wicker, the more grip you would have on a slicker racetrack. It kind of just creates a little more downforce, it catches air, and like I said, guys would always for years ran up to 2 inches until they changed it this past season. And for comparison here, on the left side's a 1-inch, this is a 2-inch, so I mean you have a pretty big difference. This is for a nose wing, it's just all I kind of had, but for comparison, I mean you can see how that's a solid adjustment. If you're wondering how big of an adjustment that is, I would say, you know, the best drivers, they would notice the difference between having each of these Wickers on their car. So what did high limit do? Well, like I said, we could run 1-inch in 2024. All the years before that, we could only run, or we could run up to 2 inches. So they just split it right down the middle, and now the maximum Wicker height is 1.5 inches. So with just the 1-inch, I don't feel like this season the racing was necessarily any better than when we had the option to go to 2. And maybe nobody thinks this way, but I feel like with so much argumentative talk around it, like, you know, it seems like a lot of people can't agree, and they're trying to make the racing so much better with just this. I feel like we should just take them off. And I don't have like a scientific argument about it or what it's going to do to the cars, but I kind of just always wondered, like, if we ran flat top wings and did not, you know, run a Wicker, what if we just weren't allowed to? Would that change the racing? Would that help unhook the cars? So I have to stop you real quick. You see this DZ logo on the polo I'm wearing? They are the sponsor of today's show. So DZ Truck Accessories has been an amazing partner of not only our race team, but also our YouTube channel in 2024. The company itself was founded in 1977 and started as a small business and has now grown into an empire across the world in the truck accessory market. To check out their extensive line of products, I put a link at the top of the description, but side steps, roof rails, toolboxes, transfer tanks, truck bed protection, the list goes on. If they create it for your vehicle, you can purchase it right through them or at a dealer close to you. Now, the DZ brand is trusted by automakers and consumers across the globe, and that is proven as they have won some big awards, for example, at the SEMA show just 1 year ago. So it was great. I got to tour their facility there in Des Moines, Iowa. I got to see everything they do, and it was awesome having them, you know, a part of our Team 18T and having them on the side of the car. So we look forward to continuing our partnership, and like I said, you can check them out at the link at the top of the description. I'm really not sure, but all I know is high limit, they have mandated that you can run up to 1.5 inches, and I think with that, it's going to be common that a lot of guys qualify on 1 inch if the racetrack's fast, and then the second it starts to go away, they're just going to take advantage of all they have and go to their 1.5 inch Wicker. And for all of us, I think we're all going to probably have to go out and get 1.5 inches because, you know, usually you just had a 1 or a 2. Maybe some teams before did, but for the most part, a local team like us, or, you know, regional running around, we just had a 1 or a 2, and you just kind of pick your option and go with it. And the final rule that High Racing has implemented into their program for the 2025 season for us drivers is now in our cars, we're allowed 1 cockpit adjustable shock. You heard me correctly. We are allowed to have 1 cockpit adjustable shock. That means we're going to have 1 knob in the cockpit where we're going to be able to turn and adjust the setting of that corner of the car with that shock. My initial reaction when I read this, I'm like, man, our job as a driver just became that much tougher but at the same time it also just became a little bit easier. See, what high limit's doing is they're giving the drivers another tool. Like I always talk about how your wing adjustment is one of your only tools in the cockpit. If you don't like how your race car is, you can pull your wing back, try to tighten up, get a little bit more grip, and if you're like, man, I can't even turn this thing, you can shove the wing forward and try to keep, you know, keep the nose down, keep the car turning, keeping it free and rotating. And now with a cockpit shock adjuster on one of the corners, you know, if you can figure out what corner you want to adjust throughout the race, how you want to adjust it, you know, with the fuel load, with burn off, with the track slickening off, or with it taking rubber, you know, you can start turning that knob and you could probably make your race car better throughout the 30 laps. It's just another thing to kind of change your setup and to be consistently fast from lap 1 to lap 30 in an A feature. So it's great to have, but again, everybody has it. So just like how the top guys are good at getting that wing back at the right time and adjusting their car that way, they're going to be doing the same with this shock adjuster. So it's just another thing that we have in play, and we're going to have to dial in, and it might take a little trial and error to see, you know, how we want to go about it and how we want to adjust our race car throughout a race. Now, I've only actually ever ran a car. Now, I actually do have some experience with the cockpit knobs. When I ran the Chili Bowl and ran the Midget in the CB Industries cars, you know, we had those, and obviously I didn't really mess with them unless I was told to. But the first year that I ran, Chad told me, he's like, hey, it's gonna start getting slick out there. When you just start feeling like you need more right rear grip, just start cranking this knob. And I remember me out there just like, all right, and I just was messing with it a bunch, and man, it actually made a huge difference. And as the race went on and it got really, really slick, like I finally got that thing turned the right way, and my car was digging. So as a driver, it's just kind of another thing to worry about, which isn't great, but at the same time, I also think it could be cool. You know, if you feel like your car's out to lunch, you can at least mess with that, mess with the top wing, and try to get yourself a little bit more dialed in so you can make something of the race you're in. So those are the 3 new rules. There was also 2 additional ones, but they were kind of more just safety stuff with the headers and also with lane choice on restarts. Like if you're the leader of a heat race and you start on the pole, you get to choose if you want to be inside or outside. You know, if the track conditions are still a little greasy or one's a little bit more preferred. Just some simple stuff like that, which I would actually agree with. If you earn that position, you should kind of get to choose. There's no reason you should get screwed starting on the pole of a race. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'd really be interested to get some of your feedback between the bleeders and the inflation system, the Wicker and the cockpit adjustable shock knob. You know, sprint car racing, it's evolving. There's some innovation going on. And with all that, and as I end today's show, I want to leave you with this. Something to think about where it's going to get real interesting is when the World of Outlaws come out with their schedule here soon, are they going to have the same rules as High Limit? And I just turned 21 years old. I'm not much of a betting man, but I would probably say they are not going to, which then in return is unfortunate for us as teams, because it just sucks when anything's different from series to series and you have to change anything on your car or technically with your setup, with the Wickers or with the shocks. That's the part that I don't like, but just kind of leave with that. I mean, I guess we don't officially know, but I would say they're probably not completely on the same page. They both kind of have their own ideas of how they want to do things, and hey, that's America, and that's really, really cool. Anyway, like I said, we're just gonna have to see how it all plays out. So sprint cars are heading in a little different direction for 2025, and we are gonna be bringing you guys along for the ride. Like I said, love to hear your feedback on what you think of some of the new rules, and you know, what are some other rules, or what would you like changed about sprint cars moving into the future, and we can chat about that in the comment section down below. All right, thanks for watching. We will see you in the next video. Deuces.